Defense made a motion for a mistrial. Prosecutor was up to some fuckery. Potentially damaging evidence, no basis for it. The judge specifically said, do not ask that question. Do not use that as evidence. She walked right down the path and asked the question. It may be over on Tuesday morning. Batman Bruce Wayne bitch snitch. Gerald Brooks, your constitution does not apply to me because I'm a sovereign citizen, a traveler on the land, I'm the Moorian Empire or whatever, bitch snitch. Because they're so fucking absurd. If you want to be a sovereign citizen, just do yourself a favor first. Go to YouTube here and just get every sovereign citizen that's ever been before. Find me one that won. God dang, you're right. Don't go down this. It's not the path. Don't have time for stupidity. Some clever dick on the internet didn't find the great loophole in all of the world's law. Bitch snitch. God dang, you're right. God dang, you're right. Traveler on the land. Moorish Empire, traveler on the land, bitch snitch, Moorish Empire, God dang, you're right, traveler on the land, bitch snitch, the late evening U.S. people. Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whoever you're doing it with, and all that other stuff. Not really interested in it. It's up to you, but I'm just glad whatever it is that's going on is going on right here with me, Legal Vices, because we're together and we're doing this. And finally, after 2 years, there's been some charges. Some charges have been brought in the Uvalde Robb Elementary School shooting. I don't plan on my blood pressure spiking particularly high. I'm trying to keep calm about this. But if you go back into the stacks of the historical Legal Vices shows, the Uvalde shows we did quite a while ago. I think I have a Uvalde playlist. If not, I'll make one. That was some of my most rant-filled, high blood pressure inducing, shouty streams I've done, just because of the extraordinary amount of, I don't even want to say negligence, just evil and cowardice that went on surrounding the Uvalde shooting. And my fan is up too high. Let me turn it down a bit. There we go. Gosh, what we're gonna do today is we're gonna take a little bit of a review of the incident as we read through a couple of news articles. We want to read about the indictments. We want to read about the arraignment and their pleas. And then I want to go through the charges. And when we're finished with the charges, I want to start looking at the after action report that was, the incident review report that was prepared. It's like 610 pages long, so we're obviously not going to read the whole thing. But I want to take today, and we'll do part 2 tomorrow, and literally break this thing down as it occurred, minute by minute, and look at the failures. it's stressful and it's infuriating just thinking about this thing. But we'll get into that in just a minute. But before, we got to do the housekeeping stuff here, reminding all of you that like button is right down there. Hit that like button while you're thinking about it and while you're being reminded. And we're continuing our press for 78,000 subscribers. So if you're new to the channel and the Uvalde title caught your interest and caught your attention, come on down and hit that subscribe button. And if you are subscribed, again, please just do me the favor, double checking to make sure you still are subscribed, which reminds me, today's like and subscribe poll is vote. Are you subscribed? 94% of you have said yes. 4% said I wasn't, but I am now. Oh, so that means some of you should have subscribed. I'm going to fact check you right now. That means there should be about 5 subscribers. Let's see if there are 5 subscribers. No, we've actually lost 2. So liars. Seriously, and then like 3% of you said no, and I won't either. So there. Well, I hope you'll change your mind and subscribe to the channel. We're good here. Okay. Joe Choi says you can't find the playlist. Okay, I will make a playlist when I finish here today, so I can add this to it. But I do hope you'll subscribe to the channel. While you'll like what you see. I hope. There's no easy way to start this conversation. 2022. At Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. An 18-year-old kid walks into a school, starts shooting the school up. He goes into a classroom and he guns down 19 children. Just murders them in cold blood. Two teachers, murders them in cold blood. 17 others are injured. And there were police officers that saw the gunman go into the school. They saw him before he got into the school. Never forget that. There are officers that saw him walk across the parking lot with the weapon in his hand and march into the school. They were alerted to him and what he was doing. Do you know how they were alerted to him? Because he shot his grandmother in the face before he went to the school. They could have stopped him from entering the school. They didn't. In fact, while he was gunning down those 19 children, while he was gunning down those 2 teachers, while he was injuring 17 others, there were nearly 400 police officers, law enforcement officers, border guards. There were nearly 400 law enforcement officers on scene at the school. Nearly 400 of them. And they did nothing for not 2 minutes, not 5 minutes, not even 10 minutes. They did nothing while he murdered these children over the space of 77 minutes, an hour and 17 minutes. If you watch the body cam footage, which we did when it was first released, you can see them standing around and actually retreating when you can hear the gunshots going off in the classroom while the children are being murdered. You can hear the gunshots go off and see the police back off. And during the 77 minutes, you get to watch on the body camera footage. These people are using the hand sanitizers and washing their hands. And there was one officer whose wife was one of the teachers that was shot, and she was calling him on the telephone saying, "I've been shot," and he basically said, "Screw this, I'm going in," and he was promptly taken by his fellow law enforcement officers. They took his gun and escorted him outside the building. Not only did they do nothing, not only did 400 officers do nothing, they physically restrained a police officer from going in and trying to at least save his family members. What happened was stupid. And right at the top of the pile was the school police chief, Pete Arradondo. He didn't even know he was in charge. We'll get into this guy later, but he's one of the ones that have been charged. It's an incomprehensible situation to me, but there have been charges brought against 2. So by my count, that's 2 down and about 400 others to go. There was 376 in total, so there's like 374 to go, minus the guy that they took away. So 373 people by my count still need to be charged. Well, let's take a little look at what's going on here. And as always, we'll read the super chats when they come up, assuming that any of them actually do come up. We'll address them as they come in. So if there's something you really want to get off your chest, if there's something you definitely want acknowledged, read, and responded to by me, super chat's the best way to do it because it comes up in the colors. It's not required, but on these reading heavy days, I don't get to interact with chat as much as I would like to. I'll try, but again, if there's something you do definitely want to make sure I see and or respond to, then please, super chat's the best way to do it. And then if you just want to support the channel, hey, that's a great way to do it too. Right. From CNN, former Uvalde school police chief and officer indicted in the first ever criminal charges over the failed response to the 2002 mass shooting. There's a few of the 400 officers standing around. CNN says here a grand jury has indicted 2 former Uvalde school police officers in the botched law enforcement response to the 2022 mass shooting at Robb Elementary School that left 19 children and 2 teachers dead. 2 Texas state government sources with knowledge of the indictment told CNN Thursday. Former Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District Police Chief Pete Arradondo and former school police officer Adrian Gonzalez were named in the indictments, which represent the first criminal charges filed in the school massacre. They point out here in the article that it's the first criminal charges filed in the school massacre. What are your bets that it's going to be the last? Is this going to be the only 2? Are they going to pursue more people? If not, why not? Exactly, Yoda. Are you going to have your 5-minute freak out right here, Yoda? Or are you just... All right. Arradondo surrendered himself to the custody of the Texas Rangers in Uvalde on Thursday. An official with the Texas Department of Public Safety told CNN the former chief was booked on 10 counts of child endangerment and known criminal negligence, according to the indictment. And we'll look at those 10 counts here a little bit later. Arradondo was then released on bond. That should have been the poll question. Now that I think about it, what his bond was. What do you just in chat, just real quick here? Throw these numbers up in chat. What do you think his criminal bond is? He was released on bond. What was the dollar value of his bond? We'll let the numbers scroll through here for a little bit, and we'll see how they're going. See what you think. What you think his bond should have been, or was. I guess let's see what it was, not what it should have been. We got 2,000. We got 2,000. We got 1 million. That's a pretty wide range there. 100,000, 1,000. So you get everywhere from 1,000 to 1 million. Free signature bond. Yeah, probably $20. That's impossible. 5.5 eaten sandwich, probably 2,500. Okay, you guys are on the low end. Except for the ones that are like the million and the 100,000. So all right, 10,000. We got. It sounds like an auctioneer. Jay No says 10,000. Kathy Kurt says 10,000. Not much. Jilly Bean says 2,000. We got a 25,000. Another 10,000. Okay, I do sound like an auctioneer. All right. So keep those numbers in mind. We've got everywhere from 1,000 to 1 million, and 100,000, 25,000, 10,000. So there's a 75. Well, he was released on bond according to the Uvalde County Jail. Gonzalez was booked into the Uvalde county jail early Friday afternoon. The Uvalde Leader News reported, citing Uvalde County Sheriff's Office Sheriff Deputy Brandon McCutcheon. Gonzalez was waiting to be processed, McCutcheon told the paper. Earlier in the day, Gonzalez attorney Nico LaHood told CNN in a statement the former police officer was planning to self-surrender, quote, so the judicial process can move forward. It is very early on in our representation, so we will be working to acquire the evidence the government is relying on in this accusation, LaHood said. Mr. Gonzalez's position is he did not violate school district policy or state law. The application of this statute to law enforcement under these circumstances is unprecedented in the state of Texas. And again, we'll look at the statute, we'll look at the charges. It will take time to evaluate these allegations and the underlying facts. CNN has reached out to the Uvalde County Jail for more information, and there is Police Chief Pete Arradondo wearing those deliciously wonderful prison orange clothes. Now, if you remember, he was one if you remember the incident, he was the one that was probably the most useless and created more problems than possibly solved. For instance, he was asking around for a key for, I think it was 30 or 45 minutes for a set of master keys. We have to get master keys. We have to get in the room. And the room wasn't even fucking locked. They never even checked. He's standing in front of a door for 45 minutes trying to get in. And, waiting for keys so he could get in, and the door wasn't even locked. In fact, it was broken and couldn't have been locked. So yeah, here he is in his prison orange. The indictment against Gonzalez was not immediately available from the Uvalde County District Court Clerk's office, and I haven't. This wasn't the guy that ran away. This was the police chief that was supposed to be in charge of the damn thing. That didn't bring his. That he left his radio. I can't remember what his stupid reason was for. I think he said he left his radio at the station because he needed to keep both hands free or some stupid shit like that. And then he's trying to find a master key to get in the door. They had 2 or 3 of the battering rams, but now he's looking for the master key, and it turns out the damn door wasn't even locked. I have so much hate for everyone involved in this. Our administration has not been contacted by the district attorney's office regarding any of our staff, and we don't have any comment at this time regarding the matter, the Uvalde Police Department said in a statement on Facebook Thursday night. The Uvalde County District Attorney's Office is not planning to file any more indictments in the botched response to the shooting, according to family members who have spoken to District Attorney Christina Mitchell. There, look at that right there. Read that paragraph again. The Uvalde County District Attorney's Office is not planning to file any more indictments in the botched response to the shooting, according to family members who have spoken to District Attorney Christina Mitchell. They ain't going to charge anybody else. The other 373 police officers that were on site doing fuck all during all of this ain't going to be charged.
Just these two are being held up as the sacrificial lambs on a statute that apparently has never been tested in this type of a situation. Elsie Mary, yep, surprise, surprise, surprise. Old Gomer Pyle, surprise, surprise, surprise. Yeah, not really. You've got an Aussie Overlord raid. Welcome, Aussie Overlord raiders. Please hit that like and subscribe button on your way in. That would be super awesome. We've got 1,313. I wish it was 1,307. I meant 307 concurrent viewers here now and 196 likes. So please hit that like button on the way in. And all right, they got two of them, the police chief and another rando officer, and they're the only ones of the 376 officers that are going to be charged. Kimberly Mata Rubio, the mother of 10-year-old victim Lexi Rubio, and Brett Cross, the guardian of 10-year-old victim Uzziah Garcia, told CNN they were informed by Mitchell that there would be no further indictments coming out of the grand jury. I'm glad two people are indicted, Mata Rubio told CNN Friday. It's not justice until there are convictions. Oh, and make no mistake here, there may very well be no convictions. I mean, from a legal point of view, this statute, which we're going to look at in a little bit, has apparently never been applied to a case like this. But I have a sneaky suspicion the jurors are going to go, yeah, we don't really care, guilty. And I can't say and it pains me to say, but I can't say that I have a problem with that. It's not justice until there are convictions, but I am also aware that there were others at fault that day. Yeah. And it's hard to accept they will not face any consequences. I believe nearly every single one of those police officers, Bridget, is still working. I would be lying if I didn't say I feel like that's not enough, Crostles. You think bringing charges against only two of the 376 officers isn't enough? Yeah, Cross, you are an absolute remarkable human being for saying it that way. I would probably have phrased it differently if I were you. Arradondo faces 10 felony charges of child endangerment for failing to recognize the incident as an active shooting and for failing to take proper action to intervene, the indictment says. And these behaviors placed each child in, quote, imminent danger of bodily injury, death, physical impairment, and mental impairment. Gonzalez also faces felony charges of abandoning and endangering a child. Mitchell, the Uvalde district attorney, told the Uvalde Leader News. I wasn't able to find Gonzalez's indictment. Probably just because he's not the big guy. He's just a guy. The district attorney's office declined to comment to CNN Friday. Well, I got questions for them. I've got questions for them. Family members of the victims have been meeting with the DA's office to discuss the results of the months-long grand jury investigation. Yeah, the grand jury investigation was 6 months long. It took them 6 months to finally decide to charge two people. According to Brett Cross, the guardian of 10-year-old Uzziah Garcia, one of the fourth graders killed in the shooting rampage, Jesse Rizzo, the uncle of one of the students killed, Jacqueline Cesares, said he was pleasantly surprised to learn about two officers' indictments. A man who says that he is pleasantly surprised to learn that two people were indicted in the killing of his niece tells you just about everything you need to know about people's expectations. That means he had zero expectations, zero realistic hope that anybody would be charged for the murder in relation to the murder of his niece. And that is soul-crushingly bad. when like literally his niece was murdered by a guy, and then there's almost 400 police officers standing around while it happens, and he's pleasantly surprised to learn that at least 2 people got indicted. But had hoped more people were faced with criminal charges, he told CNN's Kate Bouldain Friday. It's the beginning of something, right? No. Was the beginning of these 2, but it's the end of the grand jury, and ain't nobody else gonna get charged in this. But it's the beginning of these 2's criminal process. But in order to bring closure, you would want all the officers that didn't do their job that day, that failed to respond appropriately, you would want them to be held accountable in an equal way. Yeah, you'd want that, wouldn't you? You would want at least 375 officers. I have nothing but respect for the guy that said, fuck it, I got family members in those rooms. I'm going in. I'm going to do something. I'm going to save them, and was physically restrained, had his gun removed, and was physically removed from the building by other police officers. Respect to that guy. So as far as I know, there's only one person of the 376 that shouldn't have been charged. Rizzo hopes the district attorney will explain her intentions in public and indicate if any more indictments are to be expected. Well, clearly he didn't get the memo that there's only going to be the 2. A lot of us are not exposed to the daily legalities of all these things, so we get a little confused with the technical things that go on. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered as well. The Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District offered its condolences to the families of the victims on Friday. Well, thank you very much for the for offering the condolences 2 years after the incident occurred. That's mighty darn big of you. Saying it had no further information to add. As with the rest of the Uvalde community, we have only just learned about the grand jury decision indicting two indictments being issued, school district spokesman and Maria Espinosa said in an agreement. Well, how the fallout unfolded. And this is a little bit of a background. About what we're going to be looking at closer in just a minute. So for those of you that may be still fuzzy on some of the details or may not have really known any of the details, here's where we get into some more of just the horror. And like I said, after we finish reading the actual indictment, we're going to go through this. We're going to go through the after action report on literally a minute by minute basis. And you can see everything that went wrong. Earlier this year, the United States Justice Department released a damning report that concluded law enforcement officers had many opportunities to reassess their flawed response. That's the report we're going to be reading, by the way, to the May 24th, 2022 shooting at Robb Elementary School. Bursts of gunfire, reports a teacher had been shot, and then a desperate call from a student trapped with the gunman could and should have, and all have prompted a drive to stop the bloodshed far sooner, said the report. Yeah, there was one student that I think called 4 or 5 different times saying, I've been shot, help. Another one had sent messages saying that, like, all of her friends are dead. I mean, instead, it took 77 minutes from when the 18-year-old shooter walked into Robb Elementary School until he was stopped. The carnage remains among the deadliest episodes in America's ongoing scourge of campus shootings. Critical failures in leadership among specific law enforcement officers who rushed to Robb Elementary School are cited by the Justice Department, whose 575-page report was released nearly 20 months after the massacre. Yes, Aussie just rated. And that's a counting indexes and other things. That is the 610-page report I was referring to. Arradondo was fired in August 22 for his role in the failed response. Now you may remember, but after this was over, Arradondo was I believe he's on the city council as well, and he was supposed, or he was on it was the school board or the city council. He was on some board. Whether it was the city or the school, I can't remember. But he was supposed to be there. He was supposed to, and he refused to come, and he refused to enter the building with anybody there. And they eventually had to, and he refused to resign from the board. He refused to resign as a police officer. They eventually had to boot him off the board or the council, whichever one it was, because he failed to appear, and then they fired him. So yeah, he did. This dude refused to resign. That's what a piece of filth this guy is. In May, his replacement, Joshua Gutierrez, submitted his resignation, and his last day on the job was Wednesday, according to a school official statement. Gonzalez was the other guy that was indicted along with Arradondo. Gonzalez, who had been with the school district police since July 2021 and previously with Uvalde police since 2009, told investigators he was at the high school when he heard a report of a vehicle accident by Robb Elementary and went to check. Gonzalez, who said he was one of the first officers to arrive, heard shots and entered the south hallway along with Arradondo. Gonzalez said he tried to call for the SWAT team on his radio but could not transmit inside the building, so he left. Once I got out to get radio reception, I never went back in, he told investigators. Well, thank you, Mr. Helpful. While the gunman was unchallenged inside the school, Gonzalez said he spent much of the time waiting with emergency medics outside the west door. He also found a set of keys and a plan of the school, he said, that had been requested by a Texas Ranger on scene. Well, good for you, buddy. State Senator Roland Gutierrez told CNN Thursday he believes the Texas Department of Public Safety also bears substantial responsibility for the failed law enforcement response and should have been included in the indictments. This is nothing but a whitewash of the most tragic mass shooting in our nation's history, one of them at least, and certainly the worst officer-involved response to a mass shooting in our nation's history. And all of it falls in the hands of the Department of Public Safety and its director, Steve McCraw. I could not agree with that senator more. During the fallout following the massacre, DPS Director Stephen McCraw repeatedly called the law enforcement response to the shooting an abject failure and said each of its officers' actions would be internally investigated and scrutinized by the district attorney. It was more than an abject failure, and it's a crime not to indict those officers. Gutierrez said CNN has sought comment from the State Department on public safety. Officers, school employees, and shooting victims testified before the grand jury. Thank you, Super Chatters. I'll get to you here at the end of this article. So keep them coming. Multiple law enforcement officers who responded to the shooting, including members of the Texas Department of Public Safety, were ordered to testify before the grand jury, CNN previously reported. School employees and victims of the shooting began their testimony before the grand jury in March, shortly after the Uvalde City Council released an independent report clearing all local officers of wrongdoing. The City Council released a report clearing all of the locals from wrongdoing. Well, thank you, City Council. The independent investigator hired by the city reported his findings at a packed city council meeting, saying all of the officers who responded to the school from the Uvalde Police Department acted in good faith and should be exonerated. I don't care. If you are a police officer and you're just sitting around while you're hearing 19 children and 2 teachers being murdered, and you're sitting on your ass playing with the with the hand sanitizer dispenser, talking on your phone, walking around the hallway, hiding behind your shield at the other end of the hallway, and just listening to it going on and doing absolutely nothing, I don't think you're acting in good faith. Now there are judgments. There are judgments out there saying that the police have no duty to save your ass. They have no duty to put their own life in danger to save someone else. But guess what? You have a moral obligation to do that, as far as I'm concerned. In this situation, I don't give a crap what legal crutch, what legal shield, what legal mumbo jumbo you get to rely on. Going into your job as a police officer, that every day you suit up and put on that badge, you may not come home. Your job is to protect and serve. You did neither of them. Not one person did either of those things in Uvalde. Nobody was protected. Nobody was served. Children died. So you go ahead and make your legal arguments. And this sounds absurd coming from a lawyer, but this is how strongly I feel about this. Go ahead and make your legal arguments. But you have a moral duty, a moral obligation to try to stop the slaughter of little children. Ugh. They all acted in good faith. The freaking city council said so. The independent investigator said so. The findings sparked the fury of many victims' parents and community members. Yet you think, who have said for nearly 2 years that some should not be absolved. Less than a week after the release of the report, Uvalde Police Chief Daniel Rodriguez abruptly announced he would resign, effective April 6th, saying it was time for a new chapter in his career. Yeah, who would want to be police chief there after this? I'm not going to read about the federal report because we're gonna read most of that report. So that's the first article. That's the longest of the articles regarding the indictments that I wanted to read here. Yes, they did. They stopped other officers, at least one other officer, from stopping it. They took his gun away and marched him outside when he was going in to save his wife, who was one of the ones that was shot. Or it was his wife or his daughter. I can't remember which one. But one of his family members was in there and been shot. And they hauled his ass out there and took his gun away and physically removed him from the premises. M. Crow says the Uvalde cops were cowards. The children were being killed, and they were criminal cowards preventing others from protecting the children. Absolutely agree with you. Adara the Wholesome with the first super chat of the day. Thank you so very much. Donut Operator did a breakdown on it. Pretty nuts. Yeah, I did 2-3 very long breakdowns on it as well. So I'm gonna make them all into a playlist after this. But I did one. I think it was the body cam footage. Oh no, it was where I broke it down into a timeline, and I made sure that my stream was almost exactly 77 minutes long, which was the length of time that shooter was alive in the school. And it was pretty shocking to people that had watched the entire stream that's how long nearly 400 officers sat around on their asses and didn't do a thing. And Joe Choi with the £5 checking super chats. They work just fine. So thank you very, very much for checking the super chats, Joe. It's much appreciated. You're sweet. Thank you very much. So a shout out to Adara the Wholesome and Joe Choi for kicking us off, and Richard Powell for following suit with the $5 super chat. We need a separate system for the police. In the military, this would be misbehavior before the enemy. Well, I agree. Just the fact that only 2 of these officers are being held accountable is astounding for me. Captain J says, I understand we're all upset with the police. I agree more things could have been done, but morally, I can't say that was the choice to preserve their own life so they could protect. As you'll see, and some people may not agree, but there was never really that much of a threat to their safety and their lives. They had numerous bulletproof shields. They had the door wasn't even locked, so they didn't need the forced entry tools. They had axes and battering ram things, and they were all weaponed out to the damn teeth. And this guy had one weapon, and they had snipers that had a line of sight with this guy that didn't take shots because I believe the story was the bullet the trajectory of the bullet could be affected by the glass. We'll read through the report and you can see. Thank you so much for that super chat, by the way. They were protected. They had body armor. The children didn't, nor did the shooter. The shooter had none of that protection either. He was just a soft little meat cushion that could have been sniped, could have been taken out, etc., etc. You're saying things that the police would never have known during the situation. So how could you protect your life in that situation? They watched him go in. This other officer that was indicted and others saw him walk into the building because, as we're going to talk about here in just a minute, he shot his grandmother before he went to the school. He shot his grandmother, then he went to the school, and they watched him go in, and they asked, there was radio communication asking something along the lines if they should engage with him before he went in the school, and they never did. They could have taken him out before he got in the school. And so they knew he didn't have body armor. They knew he had the one weapon, and they had the line of sight through the window, the school. So anyway, we'll read through the report here later. This is just about the indictments. Let's look at your Uvalde cops stood idle is the title of this article. The Uvalde cops who stood idle as 21 died, charged with child endangerment. Families could get some justice now. The criminal charges have been brought against a pair of Uvalde shooting responders who took over an hour to jump into action. The police chief of Uvalde, Texas School District, and an officer who worked at Robb Elementary School have been charged by a Texas grand jury with abandonment and child endangerment after their botched response to a mass shooting at an elementary school left over 20 dead. Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District Police Chief Pete Arradondo and Robb Elementary School resource officers Adrian Gonzalez were charged on Thursday. They expected Arradondo to surrender later that day. He did. He was released out on bond. I don't want to duplicate too much information. After civil charges against this is in May, after civil charges against the city came to an end, a civil lawsuit, with families settling for a $2 million payout and agreeing to turn their efforts to more responsible parties. So they sued the city, and eventually they settled in May for $2 million. The families of the 21 victims. And part of the agreement was to go sue other people that were more responsible. So maybe they're gonna bring more civil lawsuits against individual law enforcement agencies. I don't know, but there has been a $2 million payout to the victims. While a legal rep for the victim's family said they would pursue the Texas Department of Public Safety for its role, in January, Department of Justice report that attributed several deaths to a lack of urgency from law enforcement officers detailed the cascading failures of leadership, decision-making, tactics, policy, and training within the department, as well as individual failures in judgment. Oh, dear. Oh, she pled guilty. Okay, that's not related to this, but cool. Well, the indictment came out, so we're going to read that here real quick. But first, well, their arraignment was held just the other day, and Sergeant Schultz with a $2. Sorry, my eyes are still kind of sunburned from yesterday. Do you know of any civil suits being filed? Oh, we just answered that question. Yeah, this against the city for $2 million was settled in May, and apparently they're going to turn their sights on the Department of Public Safety and hopefully other law enforcement officers and agencies. Thank you so much for that, Sergeant Schultz. Deeply appreciated. All right, let's look at what happened in the arraignment held the other day. Again, CNN brings us this story. Ex-Uvalde school police officer pleads not guilty to charges of child endangerment and abandonment in the 2022 massacre. Well, surprise there, huh? One of the first officers who responded to the Uvalde school massacre in Texas pleaded not guilty Thursday to more than 24 criminal counts. Former Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District Officer Adrian Gonzalez faces 29 counts of abandoning and endangering a child in connection with the May 2022 slaughter that left 19 children and 2 teachers dead. If convicted, the state felony is punishable by up to 2 years behind bars. So he's looking at 60 years-ish behind bars if he's convicted of all of them, given all of the maximum sentences and if they run concurrently. Whereas Police Chief Arradondo is facing 20 years in prison. Yeah. Gonzalez was arraigned Thursday, more than 2 years after the deadliest school shooting in more than a decade. It took law enforcement 77 minutes after the gunman walked into Robb Elementary School to take him down. As victims lay dead or dying inside classrooms, officers were seen on video waiting outside in hallways. The botched response to the carnage has been described as an abject failure, with officials and experts blaming multiple entities. Gonzalez and former Uvalde police chief The school's police chief, Pete Arradondo, are the only law enforcement officers to be indicted on criminal charges so far. According to Gonzalez's indictment, the former officer failed to follow his active shooter training. After hearing gunshots, and after being advised of the general location of the shooter and having time to respond to the shooter, the said Adrian Gonzalez failed to engage, distract, or delay the shooter, and failed to attempt to engage, distract, or delay the shooter, and failed to otherwise act in a way to impede the shooter until after the shooter entered rooms 111 and 112 of Robb Elementary School and shot at a child or children in rooms 111 and 112, the indictment states. During his court appearance Thursday, Gonzalez waived the reading of the charges. When asked if he understood the charges against him, he simply responded, "Yes, sir." That's him there. About 40 relatives of the victim and survivors packed the courtroom for the arraignment. After the hearing, some of the victim's family members followed Gonzalez to his car shouting, "Say you're sorry." Outside court, Gonzalez's attorney, Nico LaHood, said his client feels he's innocent. There were over 370 officers there. We have not seen or heard of a theory of why Mr. Gonzalez is being singled out. Well, he was the one that could have prevented it before it happened. That's what they're saying there. He failed to delay, engage, stop, try to engage, try to delay the shooter. Gonzalez told investigators he was at the high school when he heard a report of a vehicle accident near Robb Elementary and went to check. He said he heard shots and entered the south hallway along with Arradondo. Gonzalez said he tried to call for a SWAT team on his radio but could not transmit inside the school building, so he left. He said, "Peace out." Once I got out of radio reception, I never went back in. While the gunman roamed freely inside the school, Gonzalez said he spent much of the time waiting with the emergency vehicle. And now they're just reporting their previous announcement here. Arradondo was considered to be the de facto incident commander at the scene, facing 10 counts of child endangerment and known criminal negligence, according to his indictment. Arradondo was fired by the school board 3 months after the shooting. He waived his right to an arraignment and entered a plea of not guilty last week. Yeah, dude can't even show up for his own arraignment. And here's the answer to your question. Both Arradondo and Gonzalez were released on $10,000 bond. It's a $10,000 personal recognizance bond. So there you go. The $1,000 gets them their bail bond, and they're out. Gonzalez's next court hearing is scheduled for 1:30 p.m. September 16th. And I'm going to keep following both of these indictments as closely as I can. And all right, the final article before we actually take a look at the indictment itself. It's 30 pages long, but is mostly cut and paste repeat. Former Uvalde officer pleads not guilty. Thanks, Texas Tribune Festival. Let's see if there's anything here that doesn't. I think from what I remember from this, it's kind of mostly covered already. Some of the victims' families have spent more than 2 years pressing for officers to face charges after 19 children and 2 teachers were killed inside the 4th grade classroom. Some have called for more officers to be charged. For only 2 to be indicted, there should have been more because there was a lot of ranking officers during the day that knew what to do but decided not to. But they only got these 2. Jerry Mata, whose 10-year-old daughter Tess was killed, said after the hearing, "We'll take what we get, and we're just going to continue fighting for the kids and the 2 teachers and see it all the way through." They both entered not guilty pleas. Javier Montemayor, who is listed as the Uvalde district clerk by the clerk as Arradondo's attorney, didn't reply Wednesday to phone messages seeking comment. Terrified students inside the classroom called 911 as parents begged officers to go in. A tactical team of officers eventually went in the classroom and killed the shooter. We're going to talk more about that a little bit later. So that's where we sit right now with the arraignments. That there were two of them were charged, one with 29 counts, and Chief Arradondo with 10 counts. They both pled not guilty. And well, here we are. So what I want to do now, see, nothing there to read. Now, didn't the police chief claim he didn't know who was in charge, and that's why he wasn't given any? Yeah, that was one of the deals. The ranking police chief there in the school, in the school, it was literally the school police chief didn't know he was in charge. He was the ranking officer. He's the police chief. He didn't know he was in charge. Ugh. All right, I'm just kind of scrolling up here through chat. Could you imagine being the shooter in that? Just confused as to how they've been able to do what they've been doing for so long. Right, yeah, going, why am I still here? Why am I still alive? Choosy heretics choose Carnation Revolution now. Yeah, so we're supposed to believe that it was a simple game of tag. You've got it wrong. Okay, I'm willing to hear you, Choosy. What have we got wrong? And mods, are you guys being super awesome mods? Because everybody's praising mods, and I know why, because you're awesome, but I don't know why in this particular incident, other than mods are awesome. All them. Okay, it's a little mod love fest. All right. Okay, let's bring up the indictments here. This is one indictment. Like I said, it's 30 pages long. Oh, and sorry, there's 12. There's 11 counts, 12 counts, 10 counts. All right. But it is all pretty much cut and paste. So we don't have to read all the pages. We just have to look at the important parts. And then we'll start to go through this minute by minute. The event minute by minute, according to the after action report. We got JKD Buck quoting hymns there. Well, paraphrasing the quoting of hymns. That's that's good. All right, count one. Okay, I guess there was two $10,000 bonds here. Count one only has a $10,000 bond, and the counts 2 through 10 have a $10,000 bond. And the article they've been charged with is the violation of Article 22.041C of the Texas Penal Code. I didn't bring that up, did I? All right, I need to bring that up so we can read the statute here together. All right. This is what they've been charged with violating. Texas Penal Code 22.041C. Now, how big can we make this? Why is it scrolling up? There we go. C. So this is the abandoning or endangering a child. And Arradondo was charged with a person commits an offense if he knowingly, intentionally, so if he intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, or with criminal negligence by act or omission engages in conduct that places a child younger than 15 years in imminent danger of death, bodily injury, or physical or mental impairment. So they're saying that with respect to with all of these charges, he did something intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, or criminally negligent. He did something or didn't do something that placed children in imminent danger of death, bodily injury, or physical or mental impairment. It seems like a good charge to me. His inaction and maybe some of his negligent actions did things that placed the children in danger of imminent death, bodily injury, or physical or mental impairment. Now, the problem is, which is implied in the statement by his lawyer, this has never been applied to a police officer before. So this is new ground. But that's what he's been charged with. Now, for purposes of subsection C, it's presumed that a person engaged in conduct that places a child in imminent danger of death, bodily injury, or physical, if the person manufactured, possessed, or in any way introduced into the body of any person a controlled substance. No, he didn't give the child drugs. The person's conduct related to a controlled substance, not applicable. The person injected doesn't matter. So basically, it's you're presumed to have put them in danger if it's a drug related thing. So we've got the situation where the state is going to have to prove what he did and how it caused or how it placed a child in imminent danger of life or limb. Right, back to the indictment. Let's see. Share the screen again. Nope, this is the one we need. Oh, we have a snory dog. All right. And for those of you that don't know, I've got two pig dogs sitting here snoring. So they're snoring quietly today. But all right, here is the summary of the charges. In the name and by authority of the state of Texas, count 1. The grand jury for the county of Uvalde, state of Texas, duly selected, impaneled, sworn, charged, and organized as such at the January term AD 2024 of the 38th Judicial District Court for said county, and state upon their oaths present in and to said court, these are all magic words here, that Pete Arradondo, hereinafter styled the defendant, on or about the 24th of May, 2022, and before the presentment of this indictment in the county and state aforesaid as a peace officer and police chief of Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District, and while incident commander of an incident involving an active shooter on a school campus, which was under his control, to wit, Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, by act and omission, intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, and with criminal negligence, placed Noah Oscar Orona, a child younger than 15 years of age, in imminent danger of bodily injury, death, physical impairment, and mental impairment by engaging in one or more of the following acts or omissions. So here they're going to list A through J, the things that he did or didn't do in relation to putting this child in danger. After hearing shots fired, being fired in a room at Robb Elementary School, failed to identify the incident as an active shooter incident, failed to respond as trained to an active shooter incident, and instead called for SWAT, thereby delaying the response by law enforcement officers to an active shooter who was hunting and shooting a child. or children in room 112 at Robb Elementary School. God, just listen to that sentence. Delaying the response by law enforcement officers to an active shooter who was hunting children. B, after hearing shots being fired in a room at Robb Elementary School and after being advised that a teacher had been shot, failed to identify the incident as an active shooter incident and failed to respond as trained to an active shooter incident and instead called SWAT, thereby delaying the response by law enforcement officers to an active shooter who was hunting and shooting a child or children in room 112. Yep, he heard the gunshots, and you can hear them on the body cam. They're all standing in the hallway. You can hear the pop, 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 and I wasn't aware it was an active shooter incident. After being advised that a child or children were injured in a class, the children were calling their parents, saying, "Help me! I've been shot. Help me! My friends are all dead. Someone come and save us." One kid called multiple times. After being advised that a child or children were injured in a class at Robb Elementary School. Let me make this bigger here so you can see it if you can. Yeah, that's too big. Dang it. That looks like that's about as big as we can make it. Sorry. Okay, so after they were advised that a child or children were injured in a class at Robb Elementary School, he failed to identify the incident as an active shooter incident and failed to respond as trained to an active shooter incident, and instead directed law enforcement officers to evacuate the wing before confronting the shooter, thereby delaying the response by law enforcement officers to an active shooter who was hunting and shooting a child or children in room 112 at Robb Elementary School. D, failing to enforce an active shooter response plan developed by the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District by evacuating students before stopping an active shooter, thereby delaying the response by law enforcement officers to an active shooter who was hunting children in room 112. E, failing to follow active shooter training he received by deciding and declaring to others to delay breaching a room occupied by a gunman at Robb Elementary School until classrooms were evacuated, thereby delaying the response by law enforcement officers to an active shooter who was hunting and shooting children. Deciding to negotiate. Yeah, so that was also he wanted to negotiate with him. I forgot about that. He thought he could negotiate. Yeah, deciding to negotiate and attempting to negotiate with a gunman in rooms 111 and 112 of the Robb Elementary School while the gunman was engaged in an active shooter incident, thereby delaying the response by law enforcement officers to a gunman who was hunting and shooting children. Failing to determine if this is what I was talking about earlier. This Mama Jama here, he spent like 45 minutes looking for a master key to room 111. He needed to get into room 111. He was looking for keys. The door was never locked. The door was broken and could not have been locked. 45 minutes standing in front of this door. He never even went, "Oh, let me see if the handle works." I'm not sure if it was a knob or one of the push button things, like one of the push panels. But he didn't test to see if this door was open. The 45 minutes he was standing in front of it. So that's what cause G here is. Paragraph G says he failed to determine if the door to class 111 was locked, thereby delaying the response by law enforcement officers to an active shooter who was hunting and shooting children. H. Getting upset here. Failing to timely provide keys and breaching tools to enter classrooms 111 and 112 of Robb Elementary, thereby delaying the response by law enforcement officers to an active shooter who was hunting and shooting children. I, failing to follow an active shooter response policy developed by the Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District by failing to establish a command center and failing to direct others to establish a command center, thereby leaving law enforcement officers and border patrol agents without clear information or direction regarding the active shooter incident at Robb Elementary School, thereby delaying the response by law enforcement officers and border patrol agents to an active shooter who was hunting and shooting children. And J, failing to develop an immediate action plan, direct others to develop an immediate action plan, and communicate to others an immediate action plan to respond to a gunman in the event the gunman resumes shooting in rooms 111 and 112 of Robb Elementary School, thereby delaying the response by law enforcement officers to an active shooter who was hunting and shooting children. And the defendant did not, this section 262302 of the Family Code requires that you voluntarily deliver a child to a safe space. And the said defendant did not voluntarily deliver the child or children named above to a designated emergency infant care provider under section 262302 of the Family Code. All right. Take a little bit of a pause here before we read the other indictments. Again, most of it's cut and paste, but I don't want to miss these things here. Mel Klump, thank you very much for the $10 super chat. I deeply appreciate that. That makes me feel warm and fuzzy. Thank you so very much. And Alan, how you doing, Alan? Hi, Jeff and Mods. Missed y'all, and I'll be back soon after I sort out the country I'm going to live in. Cheers, Jeff. Alan, I hope you've been enjoying your vacation. I know it's been a long one. Congratulations to you. And we look forward to your triumphant return. Thank you, Alan, for being here tonight. Terry D, who's been a member for 3 months, says, are you sure the doggos are not in your sister's closet and fell asleep? Just asking for a friend? Yes, I'm pretty sure, seeing as how my sister is 6,000 miles away. But I know what you're talking about. And it wasn't a closet. It was like a walk-in closet room where my daybed was. Anyway, Samantha Palmer, how you doing, Samantha Palmer? Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. What made the officers even assume the door was locked? It was shut. Hope you're not looking for any more than that. Just the door was shut. I got nothing better than that. The door was shut. All right. Thank you so much for those super chats. We'll read more if and when they come in. But also in the meantime, it is the halfway point, and I want to remember, I'm sure that most of you have already done so, but we've got 310 people here, 359 likes. So we're doing good. There's always some turnovers, but we get about an average 35, 40 minute viewer window before there's a turnover. Like it's average. Some are here for 1 minute, some are here for the whole program. But that means we've had a significant turnover. So if you're new here and haven't hit that subscribe button yet or the like button yet, please first hit that like button. Let's get those like numbers up and subscribe. I would be deeply honored if you would subscribe to the channel. We're going to be following this case as much as we can. We're following other cases as well. We do a lot of fun stuff here. We do a lot of interesting stuff. And I would love to have your subscription and hopefully become a part of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever. And I hope we can spend a lot of time together. And you can just by hitting that subscribe button and by signing up for the notifications, hit the notification bell too as well. And we have picked up a new subscriber, so that's cool. Whoever you are, thank you very much. And we should have more of you because I'm sure there's at least some of you that aren't subscribed. So let's look at what we got going here. We have a like and subscribe poll we just put up every day. It says vote. You hit the like button, you make sure you're subscribed, and then you take the like and subscribe poll. Are you subscribed? That's today's. 93% of you said yes. 2% of you said no, I wasn't, but I am now. So that means you've subscribed. So please get down there and hit that subscribe button. We are inching our way towards 77,800. We are 67 67 subscribers away from 77,800. And 5% of you, for some reason, have said, no, I'm not subscribed and I won't. So there. But I hope you'll change your mind, you 5%. I hope you'll 5%. So that would be, yeah, it's a good number of you. I hope you change your mind. You'll reconsider, you'll repent, and subscribe to the channel. All right, that's our midstream drift. I almost said our midstream drift. Our midstream grift. Thank you so much for that. For the subscribers we've gotten, we've just got another one. Yay! Keep them coming. We like the subscribers. All right, we're going to look at the counts 2 through 10 now, and then we will begin to look at the minute-by-minute breakdown of the event. Xterra Bill, you changed your mind and unsubscribed? Hey, Nicola, how you doing? Great to see you all. 5% change your mind. We're great here. We are great. And if you don't like me, you got to like my mods. My mods are awesome. And so are the rest of the chatters. I wish I could make everybody mods, but then it would be confusing for me. But thank you so much for being here, everybody. All 300 plus of you here now. All right. Count 2. Oh, before we do that, Duncan Idaho. How you doing, Duncan Idaho? Great to see you here. With Warren v. DC and others, how do you expect this prosecutor will be legally successful? You think this will add precedent to that area of case law? Well, I haven't read that case in years. I believe those were mostly dereliction of duty type claims, weren't they? This is them saying that they just violated the law, which says you can't do things negligently or intentionally or knowingly that put children under 15 in danger or in risk of danger. So it's a different approach. It's a different tack. And one of the defense lawyers has said this is the first time it's ever been applied to a police officer. So it is Castle Rock v. Gonzalez. So yeah, it is a new area. That's why I was saying at the beginning, even though they're being charged and even though it seems like they should be convicted almost automatically, there is a chance they're going to walk on these because it is a new area of law. They're trying a new approach. They know they didn't do their duties as cops, the dereliction of duty and things like that. They probably know those charges wouldn't go anywhere. So they had to find a different way to it. And they found a different way to the charges. So let's see. That's why I said we're going to follow this thing as much as we possibly can. All right, count 2. And it is further presented that Pete Arradondo hereinafter styled the defendant on or about 24th of May, 2022, and before the presentment of this indictment in the county of state aforesaid, more of the magic words, and while incident commander of an incident involving an active shooter, you'll notice this is virtually exactly the same word except for this part here. By act and omission intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, and with criminal negligence, placed Chloe Melinda Torres, a child younger than 15 years of age, in imminent danger of bodily injury, death, physical impairment, mental impairment, by engaging in one or more of the following acts or omissions. And it's the same thing. This is cut and paste from the first section. Hearing shots and failing to identify it as an active shooter. Hearing shots and being advised that a teacher had been shot, failed to identify it as an active shooter, failed to respond, and instead called the SWAT team, which delayed the stuff. Even after being told there's children that were involved and injured in the classroom, he failed to identify it as a shooter. And so it's the same charges, just a different person. And charge 3, count 3, is the same, except for this is a charge that he intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, and with criminal negligence placed Jordan Demetrio Olivares, a child under age 15, in immediate danger, bodily harm. Same things. It's just all the same charges with different children involved. Obviously, different. Each one charge for 15 children and for 10 children. Count 4 is in relation to Jaden Carizales, who's also under 15 years of age. Count 5 is Samuel N. Salinas, a child under 15 years of age. Count 6 is Kendall Faith Olivares, a child under 15 years of age. Count 7 is for Mia Cirillo, child younger than 15 years of age. Count 8 is for AJ Martinez, a child younger than 15. Charge 9, count 9, is for Gilberto E. Mata. He was one of the children that was giving the statement. His father was giving one of the statements in the earlier things we read. A child younger than 15 years of age. And count 10 was for Maya Zamora, a child younger than 15 years of age. And I like the way they end this. Ozzy Overlord says, I missed it at the start. Is this approach police specific, or would it effectively place the same burden on civilian bystanders? This is normally specifically for civilian bystanders, for civilian people. It's a child endanger. It's felony child endangerment. You know, doing anything that places well, this is basically the wording of the statute here. Where is it? Any person who by act and omission intentionally, knowingly, recklessly, and with criminal negligence place a child younger than 15 years of age in imminent danger of bodily injury, death, physical impairment, and mental impairment by engaging in an act or omission. So it's for normal people, but they're applying it to a police officer. And according to what one of the defense lawyers said, this is the first time it's ever been applied to a police officer in their line of duty. So this is new ground. Now, I like the way this indictment is worded at the end. I haven't seen an indictment worded like this at the end, but I really like the wording. Let's scroll on down there. Goes right to the end. And the said, okay, against the peace and dignity of the state. I like how that's worded. He did all of these things against the peace and dignity of the state. I like the powerful wording there. So this is filed on 26 June 2024 at 3:03 p.m. And that is the indictment against him. Now, let's see if let's kind of put this aside for just a moment to make sure we've got everything read and out of the way here. Aha, here we are. Duncan, Idaho has given us another $5 super chat. Blessings and thank you so very much. The crazier thing to me is that we send our most vulnerable to centralized / completely disarmed buildings for 8 hours a day. But obviously officers are trash. And, it's so cliche to say, but, it's the don't worry, the police will be there in minutes when seconds matter, things like that. But again, these are schools where firearms are normally prohibited. So it's frustrating. Well, what we're looking at here next, we're going to be looking at the critical incident review. And what we will do today, for the rest of today is part 1. Tomorrow will be part 2. For the rest of today and all of tomorrow, we're going to go through the incident from the critical incident review, minute by minute, all 77 minutes, plus what happened before and a little bit what happened after, and some of the identified failings. Because this is a 610-page report. We're certainly not going to read all of it, but just so we can get an idea of what really happened, what really went on, what they've determined happened minute by minute, and where the major failings were. Now, this first part, the minute by minute report, I mean, just imagine people standing around doing nothing while all of this is going on. Take a deep breath. All right. I think I'm ready for this. They said last time I did something like this, I got incredibly angry. And there was a lot of shouting and a lot of curse words being thrown about. Oh, well, that's not what we wanted to do. This is what we wanted to do. 610 pages. Sarah Boone says, "Hold my beer." Nicola Maxwell, hey, how you doing there, girl? Wait, I clicked away from me. There we go. Scary stuff, and sadly, I'd forgotten about this. Thanks for covering, Jeff. Bless those lost souls. Well, I said, I'm glad there was finally at least 2 people charged, although they said they're not going to charge anybody else. But here we go. This is phase 1 that extends from 11:21 a.m. to 11:39 a.m. This is the minute-by-minute timeline. The incident and response unfolded across various locations inside and outside the Robb Elementary campus. Each entry in the minute-by-minute timeline is coded with the location. Additionally, radio traffic and 911 communications are coded as locations. When these communications occur from a specific known location that is pertinent to understanding their context, both pieces of information are provided. The CIR team identified 33 events within the incident response, representing key thematic activities that reoccurred over the course of the incident and response. For more information on the timeline, synchronization, location, events, please see Appendix B. Phase 1. Phase 1 from 11:21 a.m. to 11:39 a.m. Phase 1 comprises the time period from when the subject shoots his grandmother through the end of the first responding officer's initial approach towards classroom doors. So yeah, let's not forget he shot his grandmother before he shot up the school. Jonathan Irwin, by the way, with the $5 before we get too involved in the timeline. Dang, every time I see the picture of that pipe, it makes me want to smoke mine, but I'm talking and reading too much, so I would never be able to keep one lit. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. I was late to the party. Did we cover the Supreme Court ruling that the police have no constitutional duty to protect? And will that be a defense? Now, these charges have nothing to do with that. We've mentioned it a couple of times, but these charges are not the duty to protect and serve law enforcement officer type claims. These are these are child endangerment, felony child endangerment charges. So rather than protecting and serving the children, they are being rather than failing to protect and serve, here they are being charged with actively putting children in danger, which is an interesting approach. All right, here we go. 11:21 to 27 a.m. Grandparents' residence. The suspect shoots his grandmother around 11:21 a.m., subsequently sending a message to an acquaintance that he had done so, informing the acquaintance he is going to shoot up an elementary school. Next. Shortly after, the subject steals a vehicle from his grandparents' residence on Diaz Street and drives towards Robb Elementary via Grove Street. 1 minute later, 11:28 a.m. at Robb Elementary School perimeter, the subject arrives at Robb Elementary and crashes his vehicle he is driving into a ditch, approximately 100 yards from Robb Elementary. Meanwhile, outside the school, UCISD staff 1 witnesses the crash and runs inside their classroom in the West building to retrieve their cell phone, call 911, and report the crash. So teacher runs in and checks. He grabs a phone and decides they're going to call 911. <clears throat> 11:29 a.m. at the funeral home and 911 communications. The school is right next door to the funeral home, which is just fucking ironic, I guess. It's disturbingly ironic. Multiple funeral home employees also observed the crash. 2 employees walked towards the crash site to assist when the subject, having now exited the vehicle, appears with an AR-15 style rifle and fires multiple rounds at them. So he's already shooting, he's already firing his weapon before he enters the school building. One of the funeral home employees calls 911 and is on the phone as shots are fired. They report that the subject is jumping the schoolyard. None of the funeral home employees are struck by gunfire. West Building is also, I guess, 11:29 a.m. West Building northwest entrance, West Building exterior parking lot, and 911 communications. UCISD staff 1 still on the phone with 911 and now back outside of the West Building observes the gunfire and reports it to the 911 operator. So here at 11:29 a.m. is the first the police officers know there's actual gunfire going on at the school. Around that same time, the subject approaches Robb Elementary and enters school grounds by climbing over the fence on the west side of campus. West Building north side hallway, communications 911. Staff 1 re-enters the West Building and notifies Staff 2 of a man with a gun outside. Still on the phone with 911, Staff 1 advises that the shooter is on campus and the kids are running. Staff 1 then yells to students down the hall towards the south entrance of the building to get in the classrooms, the effect initiating lockdown procedures in the West Building. So the events are that the subject enters school grounds and approaches the West Building, and the Robb Elementary goes into lockdown. Communications, radio traffic. UPD, the Uvalde Police Department dispatch, calls out over the radio that a white truck, note the truck was gray, has crashed and the occupant of the vehicle is armed with a gun. All of that happened in the space of 1 minute. And the next minute at 11:30 a.m., UPD radio traffic calls out several shots fired and asks units to respond. 11:31, around the same time, a UCISD, that's the school district, the Uvalde Consolidated School District police officer, is responding to radio traffic about the male subject from the car wreck having a gun. The officer enters the west parking lot through the open gate in a white patrol vehicle. The officer does not appear to see the subject, who is nearby in between vehicles in the parking lot. Radio traffic en route to Robb Elementary, Sergeant 1 advises over the radio to shut down the school while the subject continues his approach towards the school and reaches the school parking lot. So he's climbed over the fence. Now he's at the school parking lot at 11:31. There's an officer on scene. There's the school district police officer that is now on scene, but he hasn't seen the shooter yet. The subject walks along this 11:32 a.m. And again, mind you, he's only been on school grounds since the accident, since 11:29. So 3 minutes. The subject walks along the outside of the West Building and fires 3 barrages of gunshots into the exterior wall of the West Building. Well, so he's shot at the funeral home. He's shot at the school building wall. He's walking across the parking lot towards the school. And around the perimeter, the first patrol vehicle arrives at the intersection of Geraldine and Grove Street. So now while he's still outside in the parking lot, the police officers are starting to arrive. The first UPD patrol vehicle arrives at the intersection at the West Building north side hallway. Staff 1 and Staff 2 re-enter their classrooms, 132 and 116. Staff 2 then goes back into the hallway, shouts for children and teachers to get into their rooms. Staff 2 then returns to their room. Jason J says he was basically shooting at anything that moves and not moves. The wall wasn't moving, but you're still shooting at that. So yeah, he was just shooting at anything you wanted to. The Raptor alert. This is the school district Raptor alert. The school district's emergency alert system, Raptor, sends out a lockdown alert reading, "Emergency, lockdown has been initiated at Robb Elementary School. Log into Raptor Emergency Management now for your immediate tasks." School district employees later report using their phones to initiate the alert. The next minute, the subject reaches the northwest door of the building and enters through a closed and unpropped but unlocked door, immediately making his way down the, because there was some people that accused the staff member that came out and and went back in of blocking the door open so he was allowed access. That was proven to be false. The door was not propped open. It was closed, but it wasn't locked. So immediately made his way down the hallway towards room 111 and 112. West Building hallway, outside classrooms 111 and 112. The subject begins shooting into the classroom. So he's been here. The police have been there for 2 minutes. He's walked through the parking lot. He's been there for about 4 minutes. The subject begins shooting into classrooms 111 and 112, a barrage that lasts approximately 6 seconds. The subject walks into the vestibule while shooting and appears to try to access and may enter room 112. Approximately 10 seconds later, the suspect steps back out into the hallway again, continuing to shoot, and then appears to enter 111. The subject then accesses both rooms 111 and 112 through the connecting doors between them. Now they're in the West Building north side hallway at that same time. A Robb Elementary student exits the bathroom and looks around the corner, retreating back when they see the shooter in the hallway and hear gunfire. Yeah, that was one of the to me, like, shocking things. It was on the school security cam footage. And the radio traffic at this time, while he's been shooting for 6 seconds, UPD radio traffic indicates that the subject has made it into the building, that he is shooting inside the building, and that there is a school shooting. Yet Arradondo didn't know if there was an active shooter thing going here. 1 minute later, shortly after entering, this is in the West Building inside the classroom. Shortly after entering the recessed doorway for the last time, the subject initiates more gunfire, lasting approximately 3 seconds, during which the pace of gunfire changes from rapid fire to single action. The Raptor alert, the Flores Elementary enters lockdown. Then another minute later, another minute passes inside the classroom. Inside the classroom, the subject engages in another barrage fire. I mean, look, God, the police are already on scene at this time. And another barrage of gunfire, lasting approximately 19 seconds. See, I can't help but think, what are these 4th grade kids? What are these little children thinking when there's just some guy in there shooting all of them over the space of 19 seconds? It's tragic. And while this 19-second barrage of gunfire is going on at the northwest entrance, responding officers approach and enter the doors on the northwest side of the hallway. 3 UPD officers, Lieutenant 1, Sergeant 2, and Detective 3 enter the building. Lieutenant 1 and Sergeant 2 immediately advanced down the hallway towards 111, 112. So he's been in there 6 minutes. He's been on school grounds for 6 minutes. He's been inside the school for about 2 minutes, from what I recall. And now they're there. They're walking. These police officers are heading to room 111 and 112. They're gonna go fix this, right? Well, no. And remember, this went on for 71 more minutes. This went on for another hour and 11 minutes. An hour and 11 minutes after police officers are walking down the hall towards where the gunfire is coming from. They immediately advanced down the hallway towards 111 and 112. Seconds later, through the northwest entry, 4 more officers arrive and enter the building from the west door. They are Acting Chief Mariano Pargas, Detective 1, Officer 1, PD Officer 1. Now we've got six officers inside the building while the active shooting is going on in the classroom. And again, at the same time, as more gunfire erupts inside the building, Sergeant 1 approaches the south doorway and transmits over the radio while running toward the building. Shots fired. Get inside. Go, go, go. Around this time, UPD Sergeant 3, Officer 2, and Chief Arradondo enter the south entrance of the hallway while Sergeant 1 is still approaching. So what are we up to? 10 people? 10 officers inside the building while the gunfire is still going on. One of them is Arradondo, who did not realize or did not understand that it was an active shooter, although there was an active shooting going on while he was in the hallway. So I've already lost track. I think we're up to 11 officers that are in the hallway right now, approaching this room. Well, we've even got more radio traffic at that time. A Texas DPS, Department of Public Safety aircraft unit, radios to request more information on a school shooting in Uvalde and states they will be in the area and can assist. Jim, I know this doesn't make any sense. I know. And it's not the next hour and the next hour and 11 minutes is not going to make any sense to you either. The next hour and 11 minutes of action time here. Uvalde County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Ruben Nolasco advises over the radio of a woman shot on Diaz Street. That would be the grandma, I believe. As an active shooter event unfolds at Robb Elementary, the shooting at the subject's grandparents' residence is reported over the radio, indicating a woman has been shot in the head on Diaz Street. And again, at that same time, there's a lot that happened in this 1 minute phase, in this 1 minute period of time. Someone inside the West building, someone from inside the West building calls 911 and whispers, "Help me." Oh God, see, this is where I start to get pissed and get emotional and get upset. That just gave me chills. Someone calls 911, whispers, "Help me." Dispatch asks the individual to stay on the line with them and asks where they are. The caller does not respond. The call ends after 44 seconds. And this information is never reported out over the radio. The police are never told they're getting they got this phone call from inside the room, presumably inside the room. Sorry, I shouldn't say because they didn't say where. Well, at the grandparents' residence at 1136. Deputy 1 arrives at the scene on Diaz Street, and Sheriff Nolasco is already on the scene. But at the time, there at the school in the north side hallway, a teacher is seen entering their classroom 130 on the northeast side of the hallway. In the west building, the south side hallway. That's where the shooter is, in 111 and 112 in the south side hallway. Sergeant 1 enters the building, sees police department chief Arradondo, police officer 1, Sergeant 3 inside. Further up towards classrooms 111 and 112, there is mention of an AR-15 being used. Sergeant 1 experiences intermittent radio brake failures for approximately 30 seconds while in the hallway. Well, immediately outside classrooms 111 and 112, Lieutenant 1, Sergeant 2, and Sergeant 3 are outside the doorway. And again, God, I can't help but keep going back. This is 7 minutes after the guy arrived at the school. And 2 or 3 minutes of that was him walking across the parking lot. So he's only been in the building for a few minutes, just a couple of minutes. They're already standing outside the doorway to the room he's in. And this still goes on for more than another hour. They're outside the doorway. Lieutenant 1, Sergeant 3 have handguns drawn on the door. An officer in the vicinity instructs officers to line up and make entry. Another officer is overheard saying they cannot see inside. So what went wrong? They said, okay, line up and let's go in. Let's save these kids. But what went wrong? The subject initiates a barrage of gunfire inside the classroom. Lieutenant 1 and Sergeant 3 are struck with shrapnel from the gunfire. Officers retreat down the south and north directions in the hallway. Let's look at the footnote 54 there. The CCTV footage. I believe it was fragments of wood from the door, not pieces of bullet that they were hit with. I believe that was made clear that it was pieces of wood from the doorway. So basically, here's all these officers lined up with guns. Bang, bang, bang. They go, oh my God, there's some pieces of wood flying. Let's run away. Grown-ass adult cops who not only outman but seriously outgun the guy in the room run away because they got hit with a couple of pieces of wood chips. Well, at that same time, the subject fires more rounds from inside classroom 111 and 112, including a barrage of 11 shots fired over the course of approximately 53 seconds. So while they're running away and after they're running away, he's probably in there still murdering more children. At that time, from 911, a teacher calls stating she is in the closet in the 4th grade building. Sandy Marcus, it sounds like these officers were too terrified to do anything for the kids, so they just turned and ran away. Well, that's apparently what these 4 officers did. But remember, by the end of this, there was 376 law enforcement officers there. Every one of them, except for at least one that I know, who was physically removed from the location because one of his family members was one of the ones that had been shot. He tried to go in and they physically restrained him, took his gun and removed him. So we can take him out of the picture. 375 people were cowards by my estimate. I mean, no shit. There were 376 police officers on scene. Well, while this additional shooting is going on for 53 seconds, and while the officers are running away, we've got someone calling from a closet in the 4th grade building. And then there's radio traffic. Lieutenant 1 communicates with the the public safety communications confirming the location of the shooting and requesting that communications dispatch troopers in the vicinity to Robb Elementary. The dispatch broadcast there is a teacher in a closet and that someone is banging on the door where they're hiding. They didn't restrain him. They held on to him in the building. They took his gun away and then they marched him out. And then I don't think they restrained him after that point. But he was clearly not going to get back in. Well, 1 minute later in the south side hallway, after the subject fires shots inside 111 and 112 and officers are retreating, Police Chief Arradondo stops at classroom 110. He stops next door. This is the same room Arradondo will later claim he cleared shortly after entering the West Building at 11:35 a.m. He will later claim he cleared. Someone mentioned the changing of stories. Yeah, there was a lot of changing of stories, and this is an allusion to one of the changing of the stories. At the same time, at the south entrance of the building, Sergeant 1 exits the hallway to use his radio and broadcasts. He is inside the building. We have him contained. Building on west side of property. Careful with windows facing east. Male subject with AR. So they know that they can see through the east facing windows. On the north side hallway, remember the south side hallway is where the rooms are. On the opposite end of the hallway, Lieutenant 1 advances alone towards the classroom and takes up a position of cover in the hallway by the fire doors, which are north of the classroom doors and adjacent to the janitor's closet, as the suspect fires approximately 3 more shots. On the north side hallway. Okay, we just read that one, sorry. On the northwest entrance, Sergeant 2 exits the building and encounters the Department of Public Service Sergeant, who says that DPS is sending more people. This is the first time that Sergeant 2 gets on the radio and reports shots fired. So it took him, what, damn near 5 minutes to report shots fired? Good job, buddy. PD Officer 1 conveys that the incident is unfolding in his wife's classroom. She's adult victim 1. Okay, so this is the police officer apparently that was taken away. So PD Officer 1 is the one with the wife in the classroom. This information is shared in the presence of multiple officers, though it is not clear from the video evidence whether the information is received and acknowledged. Sergeant 2 repeats several times that they have got to get in there, while just outside and inside the door at the northwest end of the hallway. One more minute. The West Building north side hallway. Border Patrol. So Border Patrol Agent 1 arrives and positions along the wall at the T intersection of the north end of the hallway. He's the first BPA on scene. On the south side entrance, Sergeant 3 is overheard outside the building saying, "We have him contained in his office." That's what we just heard up there. Radio traffic. The first request to activate Uvalde SWAT is made over the radio by PD Officer 1. There is also more chatter with a male subject. The male subject has an AR in addition to an officer down call in response to Lieutenant 1 and Sergeant 3 who were struck by shrapnel while at the doorway. There was no fucking officer down. There was officer with a scratch. Ugh. At the grandparents' residence, Deputy 2 arrives at Diaz Street residence and runs to the back of the home where he links up with Sheriff Nolasco, Deputy 3, and Deputy 1. Deputies request emergency medical services. When asked, the grandmother identifies her assailant as her grandson and tells UCSO personnel on scene his name. So Granny got shot in the head and lived to tell the tale. So tough old bird there, Granny is. Well, back at the west building entrance at 11:39. It's now been 10 minutes. All of this we've read took place in the first 10 minutes. Sergeant 1 radios to request any available units to respond and to bring shields. So this is where the first request for shields is made. On the north side hallway, Lieutenant 1 retreats down the hallway to the T intersection. On the northwest entrance, Sergeant 2 is outside of the building and on the phone with a member of the USMS task force, of which they're a part, explaining shots fired at the school, guys inside the classroom right now. He's in a classroom actively shooting and asking for assistance, saying the more help, the better. At that time on the radio, UPD acting Chief Pargas calls out on the radio for any agency available to come and help. Another request is made for air operations over the radio, but the requester is not identified. EMS are requested and dispatched to the grandparents' residence. And then over at the grandparents' residence, Deputy 2 and Deputy 3 depart Diaz and head towards the school, while Sheriff Nolasco and Deputy 1 remain at the Diaz station location. That's the end of phase 1. Phase 1 lasted 10 minutes. Ugh. I think what we're going to do is we'll end this now at the end of phase 1, and we'll pick up phase 2, 3, and 4 tomorrow, and then we'll look at some of the other incidents. But phase 2 comprises the time period following the officer's initial approach through a series of 4 shots at 12:21 p.m. So phase 2 is going to cover a good chunk of time. This should have been over 2 minutes after it started. They have 4 officers with guns standing outside the room. A couple of wood chips, come flying through there, and they run away. And everybody's calling for more help. Nobody's doing anything, just everybody's calling for more help. All right, so tomorrow we're going to pick up here, and we're going to start up with phase 2. So please make sure you come back tomorrow and follow us for part 2, because we're gonna go through this entire 77-minute process, so you can see what these officers were doing and what they were not doing, and how we found ourselves in this situation where 376 police officers are standing around with their collective thumbs up their collective asses, doing not a goddamn thing to save these 19 children that were killed. And then we'll look at some of the reviews of the failures and things that were identified in this report. Wow. Let's see, do we have anything else here left to read? I think we got all these super chats and everything. Yes, we did. Thank you so much for all of this. I'm gonna find somewhere to send you here. And let's see. Find out where we are. Studio. Guys, again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching this. Now is your last chance while we're live, and anybody watching this on replay, please do the same. Please hit that like button. And also, if you have not subscribed, I would ask you once again to give me your trust, give me your subscription, and let's spend some time together. 5 days a week, Monday through Thursday morning time US, and then Friday evening US. And we do members only streams and whatnot. So I think you'll like it here. All right, redirect. Where are we going to redirect you to? If you're on replay, I don't know where you're going to end up, but here Ooh, Chris Tyson Discord leaks on meme copium. Cat Not Williams for the YSL trial. Let's go look at the YSL trial with Cat Not Williams. That's where we're going to head off to today. All right, everything is locked and loaded and saved. Ladies and gentlemen and mods, thank you, mods, for being here, for doing your moddy best. Thank you so much for chat, for your support with the super chats and the monthly memberships, and thank you so much for just being here and listening to me and sharing your thoughts with each other, sharing your thoughts with me. You're the greatest chat on the entire internet. Not just YouTube, the entire internet. The Vice Squad is the best, and we will see you all tomorrow for part 2 of the Uvalde charges and the reports. See y'all later, chat. Love you guys. You're the best. And it's me saying bye.